rejoice in the land. Today will be a joyful day. Let her rejoice in the land.
Good morning. Welcome to the first service of the new year. I am Dorothy, and I will be the the worship associate for this service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Charlotte County, also known as UUFCC. Each month at the fellowship, the sermons have a theme. The theme for this month is Finding Our Center. We are fortunate to have Laura A., co-chair of the worship team, delivering our first sermon of 2023. I stand here this morning doing the easy part. The real work is done by those who support me, like Jim at the piano, in charge of our talented choir, to the greeters and ushers, Lori and Helen, whose smiles and warmth were your first taste of what we offer, and to Corey and Tom, who's in charge of bringing this service to others. For those of you who are here for the first time, we do a couple of things which might seem unfamiliar. Sometimes, instead of applauding, you'll see us make this sign to show our appreciation. This is the American Sign Language symbol for clapping, and we do it so that we do not interrupt the mood of the service. Also, we reference people by first names only. That is because we are broadcasting on YouTube, and we're trying to protect people's privacy. And if you are watching on YouTube, you may want to have a chalice or a candle for our chalice lighting. And now, please silence your cell phones. At this time, we would like to welcome anyone who's here for the first time. If you are comfortable, would you stand up or raise your hand and say your name nice and loudly and where you hail from so that we can welcome you. Do you have anyone new? Nobody new today, okay. And now for returning snowbirds. Are there any snowbirds to welcome back? Okay. We are a progressive and inclusive spiritual community. We value the free and responsible search for truth and meaning and offer a caring and diverse community guided by reason, conscience, and compassion. Our welcome is genuine. This morning's chalice lighting words are by Reverend Joan Johnson Lewis, who is an ordained humanist minister and a writer of women's history. Instead of reciting our regular chalice lighting words, we will recite the words of Reverend Lewis as Fred lights the chalice. The words are in your order of service. I invite those of you at home to light your own chalices or candles. Please join me in reciting her words. As we light our candles this week, we imagine the lights that shine within each of us. We each have intention, we each have experience, we each have thoughts, we each have feelings, and we each have wisdom. May these candles remind us to be in touch with those best and most unique lights of our own being, and to bring them into this room today and into all that we do in the world. Jim will now play a seasonal medley. Thank you, Jim. I really enjoyed that. This morning's opening words are by Howard Thurman. He was one of the principal architects of the modern nonviolent civil rights movement and a key mentor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His words are entitled, "How Good to Center Down." How good it is to center down. Something deep within hungers and thirsts for the still moment. A direction, a strong, sure purpose that will structure our confusion and bring meaning in our chaos. As we listen, floating up through all the jangling echoes of turbulence, there is a sound of another kind, a deeper note. Our questions are answered, our spirits are refreshed. Our next musical selection is found in your Teal Hymnal, number 1008. Please rise in body or spirit as we join the choir in singing, "When Our Heart is in a Holy Place."
We are blessed with love and amazing grace.
We have a long tradition at UUFCC of sharing our joys, sorrows, and life milestones by entering them into the Red Book of Life. I will now ask Fred to bring up the Book of Life. Prior to this service, the Book of Life is located at the rear of the sanctuary. Thank you. If you have a joy, sorrow, or milestone to share, you may email them at bookoflife@uufcc.org, or you may enter them yourself on Sunday morning. Then the worship associate will read your words to the congregation and make sure they're entered into the Book of Life. This morning, I have the following. This is from Mary H. I've had news from Costa Rica that my stepson Glenn died on December 26th. He had fallen and broken his hip 6 weeks ago, sadly contracted COVID in the hospital, and couldn't overcome the ensuing complications. Whenever he visited here, he would come to services with me. He was a lifelong UU. And Mary will be thinking of you. From Tricia L., our guest family had a great holiday. We had a Venezuelan holiday meal on Christmas Eve and a traditional American meal on Christmas Day. The children loved their gifts. The house has been filled by extra giggles, laughter, and glee. Thank you for your generosity. And from the Book of Life here, this is from Laura A. After COVID and hurricanes and the funk of worry, I declare a new year of a better attitude. May it be so. This morning, we recognize the joys and concerns in our hearts. May we hold one another in love and tenderness so that this fellowship may be a source of strength and comfort, courage and hope in the days and weeks ahead. Now let us enter a time of silent prayer or meditation. We will be called back from our silence with the hymn, Spirit of Life, page 123 in the gray hymnals. Next, I would like to introduce our own Laura A., who has been a Unitarian Universalist for 25 years. She first joined the Unitarian Church in Ogden, Utah, where she served on the board and as board president. Later, Laura joined our fellowship in Charlotte County, where she is currently serving as co-chair of the worship team and where she co-created our current website. Laura is also an active member of the Immigration Justice Committee. She is a humanist and knows that peace and goodness will prevail because love is stronger than hate. She gets her strength and inspiration from us and her husband, Cliff. We welcome you, Laura.
Thank you, Dorothy. I am a cisgender 66-year-old woman. My pronouns are she and her. I have shoulder-length gray and purple hair. Today, I'm wearing a white shirt and black pants and a black and white jacket. I also have on a beautiful necklace that is a glass symbol of our Unitarian Universalist chalice. Greetings to all on this first day of the new year. I'm not one for making resolutions, but I always do feel a sense of hope at the beginning of the year. And this morning, my hope is that this talk will leave you with a sense of satisfaction from being here this morning at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Charlotte County, and maybe give you something to think about too. I'm not sure who said, the best way to predict the future is to create it, but that applies to us right now, and that is what I would like for us to consider this morning, to imagine our future together. What could it look like? This isn't science fiction. It isn't even a novella. It is our future. It is our opportunity to create our place together. We view the world based on past experiences, not what we want the future to be. It's easier to stick with what is familiar, but since when is being a UU easy? If you wanted an easy religion, you would still be you fill in the blank. The research I did for this next part is from the UUA website, Wikipedia, the Pew Trust, the UU World Magazine, and Statistics Canada. And this is what I found. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religion characterized by a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Unitarian Universalists assert no creed, but instead are unified by their shared search for spiritual growth, guided by a dynamic living tradition. Currently, these traditions are summarized by the 6 sources and 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism, documents recognized by all congregations who choose to be part of the Unitarian Universalist Association. These documents are living, meaning always open for revisiting and reworking. UU congregations include many atheists, agnostics, and theists, and have churches, fellowships, congregations, and societies around the world. The roots of Unitarian Universalism are in Protestant liberal Christianity, specifically Unitarianism and Universalism. From these traditions comes a deep regard for intellectual freedom and inclusive love. Congregations and members seek inspiration and derive insight from all major world religions. The beliefs of individual Unitarian Universalists range widely. They can include, but are not limited to, humanism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, Taoism, syncretism, omnism, neo-paganism, atheism, agnosticism, pantheism, parentheism, pandeism, deism, and the teachings of the Baha'i faith. That describes us here at UUFCC pretty well, I think. When the Unitarians and Universalists merged in 1961, membership was estimated to be 250,000 people, and 40% of the congregations were lay-led. An article in the UU World a few years ago talked about that time when we merged, and I liked the explanations of Unitarianism, Universalism, and the fellowship movement. Much of this resonated with me thinking about how we balance our differences here. Like the 3 wise men in the Christmas story, each partner brought their own unique gifts to the union. At the risk of oversimplifying, one might say the Unitarians brought the voice of reason, the Universalists the blessing of tolerance, and fellowships the gift of freedom. When applied to Unitarian Universalism after the merger, each of them is a blessing that also carries a shadow side. The shadow side of freedom, the gift of the fellowship culture, is anarchy, a lack of order and structure, and the inability to create and sustain a center. Those qualities remain the primary danger facing lay-led fellowships. When each person is free to create his or her own religion, there is no grounding, no common core. When we gather in community on Sunday morning to pass life through the fire of thought, as Ralph Waldo Emerson put it, we need to hold up our religious experience and understanding to the test of reason. We need to be encouraged to listen to the voices of others with openness and tolerance. The shadow side of reason, the hallmark of the church Unitarianism in the 1950s and 60s, is that spirituality often gets parked outside the door. In the words of Joanna Macy, humans are more than brains on a stick. We experience with our emotions, our bodies, in relationship as well as alone. It is too easy to rely on words, to rely only on words and our intellect to process experience, or to turn over responsibility for articulating our faith to professional clergy to explain. When others interpret for us, our experience is narrowed. We become consumers rather than participants in the process. Excessive reliance on reason needs to be held in check by the freedom to question and the tolerance of other ways of being religious. Tolerance, the gift of the Universalists, also has its shadow side. Those who tolerate everything stand for nothing. Unitarian Universalists spend a lot of time drawing and redrawing boundaries, knowing that revelation is not sealed, yet some truths are fixed. The 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism espouse the acceptance of diversity, but they also spell out values that define Unitarian Universalism as a faith tradition: respect for the individual and for the natural environment, a commitment to justice, and a duty to engage in the search for spiritual meaning. Reason, tolerance, freedom, and anarchy? I'm in. How do we compare in the scheme of things? How unique or different is UUFCC compared to UUs in other places? We are small. Currently, there are 1,048 congregations worldwide. In the United States, 148,232 members and 800,000 who identify as Unitarian Universalists throughout the world. The proportion of American adults who identify as UU is 0.3%. Of those 1,048 congregations, nearly 70% have fewer than 150 adult members. We are small. Most UU congregations are small. 51% of congregations have fewer than 100 members. 105 congregations have 20 or fewer members. The official membership of UUFCC reported to UUA last year was 126. Our fellowship is currently lay-led. Last year, Dennis researched the history of the fellowship and noted that for about half of our existence, we have been lay-led. About 30% of all UU congregations are lay-led, fewer than the 40% mentioned from 1961, but still a substantial portion. Do we like being lay-led? Do we even want a minister? Is it feasible to hire a minister? What could we do with the money we use to pay a minister? Lots of questions. Answers to these questions affect our future. Small churches have small budgets. The median budget for congregations under 140 members is $64,000. 5% of churchgoers tithe. I don't know how many UUs give a full 10% tithe, but I'm thinking it's not too many. Nationally, the average weekly giving amount per churchgoer, all churchgoers, not just UUs, is $17 per week, which translates into $884 a year per giver. Those who attend regularly give $1,700 a year more than those who attend once a month or less. I'm not involved in finance here at UUFCC, but I do, and I don't know what our average is, but I do come with another question, one that I think is relevant. Is what we have here worth $17 a week to you? Back to that median budget number, $64,000. I know the average salary for a UU minister is $61,000. On top of the salary are benefits and a housing allowance, conservatively say another $20,000. We've had ministers here. Most recently, we have had full-time ministry. Even if we decide we want a minister, and even if we more generously fund a larger budget, there is a shortage of ministers. According to the UUA directory, there are 2,082 religious and professional leaders. But when I filter for just active ministers, there are 1,011 serving. The rest are inactive or retired. There are UU community ministers, those who focus on pastoral care, and chaplains in places like hospitals and in the military. Enrollment in theology schools is down. Young people are not going into ministry. People are quitting ministry in higher numbers than ever. The average clergy member is 57 years old, compared to 50 in the year 2000. Baby boomer ministers are retiring. There are simply not enough ministers. Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, UUA president, said, "We know from these last several years the challenge, the loss, and the creativity and possibility of these transitional times. In liminal times, there's always a risk that fear and anxiety will dominate and lead people to cling more tightly to what has been." This was a message for UU leaders, but it could have been a message specifically for us here. In this time, let UUFCC, in this time at UUFCC, let us embrace creativity and possibility in this time of change. I'm not very good at visualizing how something should be, but when making decisions, I can start with what I don't want. I don't want a minister to interpret my theology. Perhaps we want a minister to depend on. We want someone to save us, to do the work for us. But we are Unitarian Universalists. Remember that shadow side of Unitarianism that warns us we become consumers rather than participants when we turn over our responsibility for articulating faith for professional clergy to explain. I do not cede all authority to a professional, but I don't get to make that decision, do I? This is a decision that we all make together. And perhaps you can convince me to cede some authority, but not all. The two major responsibilities of ministers are worship and pastoral care. Pastoral care is not mine to speak of this morning, but worship? As a member of the worship committee, I can speak with some authority on worship. I sort of like the way we are doing Sunday mornings now. Of course, we worship associates are doing what we think best, and certainly give consideration to balancing a variety of theologies with a good dose of social justice. Since September, we've had ordained ministers deliver sermons twice a month, and there has not been a stinker in the bunch. For the past 8 months, we have invited a speaker from the community once a month to speak on Sunday, extending our long-standing tradition of holding a second offering on the second Sunday of the month. We have strengthened connections in our community with the organizations who have been selected to receive our second helpings. These speakers have all been excellent as well. When I think of the moments of worship that sustain me, they come from thoughtful, heartfelt messages. And from my perspective, there have been many of these from our lay-led worship services. For about a year, Reverend Kathy Schmitz addressed us once a month, first virtually and then in person. I always looked forward to Reverend Kathy's services. She left UUFCC in a better place than when she joined us. I know she supported the board and other groups. She led several workshops for us and guided the worship committee during this time. And we learned how to write better sermons and better coordinate all parts of a service. Do we want a full-time minister? Do we want a part-time minister? Do we want a virtual minister? What are we willing and able to pay for? Do we want a religious education coordinator to provide more workshops and classes? Maybe we should hire a UU liaison to help keep us better connected with the UUA. Do we want a chaplain? Do we want a community minister? For now, ask yourself, what are you excited about? What do you miss? What part of this beloved community is important to you? I'm really not at all saying we shouldn't get a minister, but I have seen communities change to fit the minister's personality. This often does not work out well in the long run. Ministers are the professionals and may have a vision for our church community, but maybe that vision isn't the same vision we have for ourselves. Remember the shadow side of the fellowship movement, anarchy, a lack of order and structure, an inability to create and sustain a center? Do we need a minister to sustain us? Do we need a minister to center us, to provide order and structure? Half of this fellowship has been without a minister. There have been many ministers here, but the fellowship is not a minister. We are in a time of transition, but isn't life a journey? We are in a liminal time, a time between what was and what will be. Catholic priest and philosopher Thomas Merton said, "What we have to be is what we are." Here at UUFCC, we are a loving, justice-seeking people. May we keep being all that we are. I would say we are enough. Will you support me in providing a blessing? The words are on the backside of your order of service. I'll start, and then in the end is the part that you will read, if you are so moved. Once I call your name, would you please stand and stay standing? If you have served as board president, I invite you to rise in body, in spirit, in all the ways that we do. If you have served on the board of trustees as vice president, treasurer, secretary, trustee, I invite you to rise in body, in spirit, in all the ways that we do. If you have led a ministry here, served as chair of a committee, I invite you to rise in body, in spirit, in all the ways we do. If you have served as a member of a committee, led a workshop, organized a discussion, I invite you to rise in body, in spirit, in all the ways that we do. If you have shared with us your musical talents, I invite you to rise in body, in spirit, in all the ways that we do. If you have shared with us your artistic talents, I invite you to rise in body, in spirit, in all the ways that you do. If you have volunteered your time to support this fellowship by greeting people, by making coffee, by cleaning up after an event, a storm, by working to make our home more beautiful and more safe, I invite you to rise in body, in spirit, in all the ways that we do. If you have voluntarily given money to support this fellowship, I invite you to rise in body, in spirit, in all the ways that we do. As we begin a new year together, let us offer our blessings to all who invest their time and care in the well-being of this fellowship. And I invite all of us to enter a spirit of prayer or quiet reflection. Please join me in the blessing printed on the back of the order of service. Spirit of generosity, we're grateful for all who have given of themselves to make this community strong. Spirit of connection, bless us in our work of reminding us of our highest inspirations. Spirit of encouragement, orient us always toward manifesting love. Spirit of love, keep us grounded in practices that nourish us in this sacred work. May the fruits of our dedication to this fellowship return to us 1,000-fold. May it be so, blessed be. You may sit down. Thank you.
Laura, that was a wonderful sermon to start our first year. In our tradition, congregation exists because of the generous support of members and friends. At this time, I invite our ushers to come forward and take the offering. If you're with us for the first time, do not feel obligated to give today. You are our guests. While the ushers are coming around with the baskets, the choir will sing, "From You I Receive." Now it is time to highlight UUFCC's special events and activities. Please remember to read Mary Jane's updates, which include a calendar of activities and which ones are also on Zoom. Additionally, if you would like to have fellowship events highlighted during the service, you can email them to the worship team at bookoflife@uufcc.org. Today I have the following. There's a Who Are UU breakfast gathering on Saturday, January 14th at 9:30 here at the Fellowship. Oh, also, we have keys in a fob. I don't know if anybody lost them. Helen? Okay. Also, David Martin would like to come up to make an announcement.
Good morning. In 1965, my then wife and I went religion shopping because our first child was to be born the next year. We happened to walk in to the congregation, well, it's now called the Congregation at Shelter Rock, but it was then called the Plan Dome Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We happened to walk in the day the minister returned from walking at Selma, Alabama. It's still emotional for me. I knew immediately this was the place for us. These were people that put their money where their mouth was, walked the walk. Florence and I were thrilled to learn that we are helping an immigrant family. We weren't here when that decision was made, but we're very, very happy about it and very supportive. We need more people to be supportive of that effort. We need all of us to put our money where our mouths are, to walk the walk. These kids need to get to school. There are needs that we can help with. We want them to become part of the community in the way that they wish to be, but certainly one thing they need is English and getting to school. Now, maybe you can't drive, so maybe that's not the thing you can do, but everybody can do something, and we need to do everything we can to support these people. We said we were going to do it. Let's do it. Let's make sure the kids have rides whenever they need it. Let's make sure we've done whatever we can.
And I believe people would contact Myrna Cherry to get more information. Right? Is it Myrna Cherry, right? Okay. Also, someone wanted me to remind people we need people to sign up to make coffee. I would now like to call up Mary Hawley to discuss an upcoming program.
Good morning. You may have read this in the updates, but Dennis, Helen, Mary Jane, and myself are providing an opportunity for you, if you haven't seen it, to sign up for a class for 8 weeks. It starts this Thursday at 1 o'clock from 1 to 2:30 every Thursday, and the topic is Facing Death with Life. Oh, what does that sound like? Well, we will be talking about beliefs about death. We'll be actually doing some sharing and some practical, getting some practical information about preparing for death. So if you're interested, we have a few slots left. Please see me or Helen. Helen, could you raise your hand just to make sure everybody knows you? Thank you. Today, because as I said, it starts Thursday right here, 1 o'clock, and we'd love to have a few more people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Holly. The choir will now perform. Did I miss anything? Okay. The choir will now perform When the Spirit Says Do.
Spirit says shout. Spirit says shout. Spirit says shout. Spirit says shout. Oh! Do what the Spirit says do. You've got to do what the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you've got to do, oh Lord. You've got to do what the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do.
Well, that was a lot of fun. The closing words this morning are by Reverend Scott Taylor. Home is always waiting. When the weight of the world tips us over, when the winds of the world leave us spinning, when the voices of the world lead us astray, may we remember that here, home is always waiting, with stillness to calm us, friends to anchor us, and voices to help us find our way. Amen. And now, please join me in our traditional recitation as Fred extinguishes the chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. Following our musical selection, go now in peace. Those who are here in the sanctuary are invited to join us for coffee and treats in the social hall. Also, a reminder to turn your cell phones on. Thank you.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of Lord surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of Lord surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
So that this room, kind of just talks about it after we do our 8 weeks. People will share a little bit about, was it meaningful, why,